What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down how to shut down an absolutely insane player. You always go up against them in your games, whether they're just freaking nuts, whether they're smurfing, the list goes on and on. For whatever reason, this person is just single-handedly destroying your entire team and you don't know what to do. Well, we got the perfect video for you, so make sure you watch to the end, smash the like and subscribe, and go to the GameLeap website right now for very advanced content, in-depth tips and tricks and VOD reviews that you won't find on any of our videos on the main channel or anywhere else. So go check it out right now down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. So you're going up against an insane player and you have no idea how to shut them down. And if you do shut them down, you're gonna win. And if you can't, you're just going to lose so damn easily. Now, the first thing that you need to realize or think about is the fact that they could be on any role and you need to identify what role they're playing. You might not think, hey, there's an insane player in the supporting position that is just really putting a lot of work in, but there's so many times when a support is making the difference. Whether they're just never getting caught out and getting killed, to making a really huge play with one of their abilities like a really big nade, or their ultimates are consistently good. Whatever the case is, you need to identify what role and who is the one having just an insane game. Now, this insane player could be in any of the roles, so it's important to keep an open mind. But when you identify this insane player, now you need to move on to the next tip or the next step of the process, which is identify how they are getting value. And not just identifying what they're doing, but how are they pulling it off? How is that Roadhog constantly getting hooks on your team? Is your team just simply unaware? Are you not guarding the angles that he's flanking? Is no one keeping him in check? Is there no CC to put him in check? Or let's say that there's a Genji on the enemy team that is just able to get so many damn kills. Are your supports not healing up your team to past that burst limit and people are getting dashed through the shield? Are you losing your duels? What's going on? And why is whatever character on the enemy team getting just so much damn value? Now, the next step, of course, immediately after that is how can you stop that value? What can you do to directly put a stop to whatever's happening? Now, the first thing that you could do is the easiest thing, which is just pointing it out. Sometimes all you have to do is say, hey team, look at this Roadhog. Stop letting this Roadhog flank. Eyes on Roadhog. Roadhog's flanking. Just talking to your team a lot of times can fix some of these just simple problems. Many times a Roadhog will go rampant, especially in some of the lower ranks, when he's just walking around, looping around, seeing these opportunities, and no one's keeping him in check at all. He just has free roam. He's getting tons of free picks, and no one's doing anything about it, and no one is going to do anything about it. And then you're from the back, you're looking, and you're like, what the hell? Everyone's ignoring this hog. But really, you should be the one in the comms telling your team. Now, I'm not expecting that to work every time. In fact, there's a giant percentage of the time where that's not going to work. You're going to talk to your teammates. They're not going to listen. They're not in chat, or they're just not going to do anything about it. And that's not going to be enough. But there are other ways that you could stop that value. One thing that you could do is just pick a character or be a character and utilize your abilities to really put pressure on whatever person on the enemy team is being far too aggressive and really just trying to avert their impact. Whether it's that hog flanking, if you're an Ana, of course, you could sleep that target, get them out of the picture. Or you're a McCree and the enemy Genji's going nuts. You play it far more passive. You wait for that Genji to come in and you always pose the threat of potentially flashbanging him, so he has to play far safer before he goes in on your team. This is not swapping to different characters. This is simply altering your playstyle to where that person on the enemy team, that player on the enemy team that is getting the maximum amount of value, that is your primary focus. Whether you're a diva, you're saving like a little bit of your DM to make sure that you can eat the Ana nade, or you're a tracer and every single pre-fight you go in hard at the Baptiste trying to bait out immortality field so he can't use it to turn a close team fight later on, and you just try to do that every single time. These are ways that you seriously disrupt the flow from that insane player into the game and make them use their abilities, position far more safely, or they simply just can't do anything at all because you are keeping an eye on them, you're shutting them down, and in a way, you're making them your primary focus and your mission is to shut them down. Now, the next thing, of course, that you can do up against really sick players is just trying to target that person, trying to kill that person, going at them as a diver to a support, bullying them as a tank, like playing Zarya, and making sure that you save a lot of your bubbles for when that person is inevitably going to go in and you give your team a lot more survivability. Or maybe the enemy Ryan is consistently out-shattering your Ryan, so as Ana, what you're trying to do in every single team fight is splash the back wall to nade the enemy Ryan and potentially get a pick off on him, or at the very least make him play far more scared so he can't get as much damage off and he can't get as many shatters, thus not shattering your whole team as much. And this is something that's really important for you to understand in Overwatch. When an enemy really is out to get you, when an enemy puts a lot of their time and effort into making sure that you can't get away with anything, now all of a sudden, you just can't go nuts. You can't go crazy. You might be a smurf, you might be someone that is just way better than everyone in the lobby, but you have someone that is almost annoying to a fault. The best way to describe this is actually the Tracer versus Tracer example, and how a much worse Tracer player can make a much better Tracer player completely useless. Now, a Smurf Tracer, a really good Tracer is going to want to go in, they're going to want to aggressively take duels with enemy DPS, they want to go in and one-clip enemy supports and just do whatever they want, just get a lot of kills, and they'll take a 1v1 with anyone because they know that they can win it because they're mechanically better, their movement's better, and the list goes on and on. Now, you're a worse Tracer, and you want to keep that person in check, but a lot of times you go in for that 1v1 and then you lose it, and then you're just like, I can't shut this person down, I can't play Tracer. But here's the thing, you actually do not need to play that way, because the only thing that you're trying to do is shut that player down, not kill them always. You do not have to kill them if it's actually unfeasible. Something that you need to understand is in order for that Tracer to get value, they have to engage in a 1v1. They have to go seek out your supports, and all that is going to take positioning, it's going to take using their abilities, it's going to take putting themselves in a vulnerable area in between your team. And if you instead are on defense, and instead of wasting your abilities to go try to make a proactive play, you're keeping them back, you're sandbagging them, and only doing enough to keep that Tracer in check. The Tracer comes in to kill one of your supports, you're on that Tracer and they recall. The Tracer goes and tries to 1v1 your McCree, you're right on top of her as well, fighting right with the McCree. Now, you might be saying, okay, well then that Tracer's just gonna try to take a 1v1 with me. Don't give it to her. Run away. Don't take the fight. Just do enough to make this Tracer unable to do absolutely anything, and you've done your job to shut down this insane player. Sure, maybe you turned the fight into a 50-50. Maybe you didn't go above and beyond, and maybe your team might lose anyways, but your team was undoubtedly gonna lose if you let this Smurf just run rampant, and just simply keeping them in check is doing so much to potentially give your team the shot at victory. Now, the last thing that we gotta talk about is the counter picking, because I think that this is a really good way to actually bridge the gap between your team and much better players or a much better individual player, and that's just picking the natural counter to that character. There's a lot of characters that everyone can pick from any role, and while you can't control your team's pick, you can definitely control your pick, and understanding what characters you could play counter what the enemy is playing is a great way to directly try to shut them down. Now, I'm not suggesting the enemy team pick Widow, right, and you just like, hey, I'm gonna counter pick Widow too and shut them down, especially if that person's a Smurf. That's gonna be very difficult. You're probably gonna end up adding more fuel to the fire. That being said, there is always a character that you could play that might not be that difficult for you to play, but at the same time still counteract some sort of aggressive style of strategy. Now, we talked about many times in the past when and where you should counterpick, so if you want to know more about that, you definitely need to go check out that video. But ultimately, this comes down to is simply using counterpicking or the natural positive matchups up against the enemies to really just try to, at the very least, shut down what that player is doing. Whether they like to flank a lot, or whether they're pushing way too aggressively, or they're wasting all their abilities. There's always something that you could find to exploit. And if you combine this with the previous tips, you're gonna have a game plan for dealing with these Smurfs instead of just like rolling over and losing, or an insane player, Smurf, same thing. You have a game plan, so at the very least, some percentage of your games up against these types of players, you're still gonna win regardless, and that's really gonna be the difference in you climbing. Remember, having a 50% win rate compared to a 55-60, all of a sudden, one, you're hard stuck, and one, you're climbing through the ranks. So I hope this has helped you. If you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments down below. For more advanced content, go to the GameLeap website right now in the comments down below. But thank you so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video. I love your faces, and I'll see you next time.